aggressive, or will he take it to a longer game? Okay, I was going to say, is it a king's pawn opening, which he's been going towards lately a lot? Nope, it's 1d4. And Ivanchuk, he plays every opening under the sun, every opening known to man. What are we going to see in his final game of the tournament?
I predict the knight is going to move out. And, oh, no, I got that wrong. Oh, look at this. It's a London system. And, well, you guys aren't Londoners, are you, at all?
Yeah.
I lived in London for a while, but not born there, no?
Yeah. I was born in London.
Oh, I wasn't born there, no. I thought you meant, do you play the London system? So
play the Jabava London system.
I do, and the London system.
London, yeah.
And I lived in London for a while, so, yeah, near Croydon. Yeah.
What was the road name? No, I'm joking. That's enough about the London city. It's all
I got
about
curious
the
about the road name now.
I can't even remember. I do remember, but yeah, it's...
No, but back to the London system, the London opening. OK, we see a quick pawn exchange. It's funny, I was actually playing a blitz game yesterday just to warm up before the show, and I think I had this exact position on the board from the white side, and I had no idea what to do. Right. Ended up in a draw. OK, white's pawn now, white's c pawn, I was going to say, is likely to push forward. What do you think of this approach, Simon, as a London system player?
Well, it's not normal, because the pawn that Lev basically exchanged is normally your main pawn, which you keep in the London system. So he's playing it in a bit of a unique way, but this push that he's done with that pawn, the C pawn, brings it back into pretty normal territory. And he's just going for a small advantage, small positional advantage here. If he can exchange pawns, he might give himself what we call an isolated pawn that he can play against. So a bit of a unique approach anyway, this in the London system. Yeah. Not your normal club players approach, really.
No, I mean, I have to say I was once told that, you know, if black develops a dark square bishop and you capture the pawn, as what's happened in the game, and white does have a slightly bigger edge than you think it does. You know, you would think that, OK, well, black has got no problems. But there are some problems, and it's mainly based on this light square bishop that black has. It just doesn't have a good diagonal at the minute. And white will just develop normally and then put the rooks towards the centre. No, I say that, and he captures the pawn in the middle. But OK, but this is another small advantage that white has. And now white will just start using the strategies that you use when you face you face this pawn, and that is, first of all, you develop, and then you start controlling the square in front.
He continues developing, Aronian, and I'm assuming Ivanchuk will castle his king, get that piece to safety. Yeah, it's always hard to say how much of an advantage there is for white in these types of scenarios. OK, he brings his bishop out. That hints at the desire to want to change the pawn structure, actually. Levon, Aronian. Maybe he'll capture this knight with his bishop at some point. He's flexing there, typical Levon Aronian. When he likes his position, he tends to stretch. Black's bishop coming out. The one kind of negative for me in this game so far is that Ivanchuk, it's going to be very hard to win for him. It feels like black is trying to equalise, and this means that we're unlikely to see him have any chance to qualify for those knockouts. He's playing great chess. I mean, very solid, very correct opening, but unless Levon kind of provokes him somehow, takes too many risks, it's going to be hard for black to win this game. Yeah. OK, will white castle his king finally? Will he move his queen? Will he nudge that bishop that's just developed? It's all about that isolated queen's pawn for black. At the moment, it looks pretty good. It looks like a space gainer rather than a weakness.
Yeah, I suspect that probably he'll just castle. You know, the black pawn in the middle is not threatening to come forward at any time. So follow the rules of chess, the classical rules, that is, and just castle the king, get it out of danger.
Yeah. Are you impressed by the speed with which both players are currently playing? Because, I mean, the last few games, at least, both of these players, they've played incredibly quick. Normally that goes the other way as the tournament goes on.
No, I'm not impressed by the speed. I think it's a dangerous thing. Yes, you know, it can put pressure on your opponent, but as you say, things can go wrong. And, well, he attacks the bishop, takes a step back, now castles. Yay.
I'm a bit surprised where white's put his light square bishop, though. This is the one thing that surprised me. I mean, it looks a little bit strange, that light square bishop. I mean, black's got a very nice pin, what we call a pin, with his bishop against white's knight, tying down that knight. And that's really annoying for white, because white would like to move that knight, and you don't want to be tied down. And it seems to me that the ideal square for a light square bishop is to block that pin. So moving it even back here would probably be the move I'd play, because I just want to swap pieces off. I want to control the square in front of my opponent's isolated pawn. We say that pawn in the middle, black's pawn in the middle, is isolated because, again, it's a bit like we talked about pawny no mates earlier. The pawn which has no other pawns next to it which can help it out, and that pawn can never be defended by another pawn, so it's a weakness. And the square in front of that pawn is the very big weakness, which I think Spassky, again, I've said this before, but Spassky said it's not the pawn, it's the square in front of it. So this kind of plan is very normal. You try to exchange pieces, put a piece in front of that pawn, and later on you try to win that pawn. So that's just what surprises me about this position, where the light square bishop is for Aronian at the moment.
It seems an unusual way of stopping that pawn from advancing. Yeah, I just said, Simon, just to go back, didn't you call the pawn Dilly no mates?
I think there was a D pawn we called Dilly, yeah. In one of the other shows, we called it D. The D pawn we gave the name Dilly, didn't we? Yeah. Dilly no mates. I think it was Dilly no mates, yeah. So.
And, OK, black slides the rook across. And now maybe there are some ideas that black's pieces are going to get active. And I'm kind of agreeing with you there, Simon, that that bishop is on the wrong diagonal and it's on the wrong square.
Well, maybe the only idea I can see about putting the bishop there is to take the knight. I mean, that's the only kind of logical continuation, and then try to go for another weak pawn, because at the moment we've only talking about the pawn in front of black's queen, but maybe you can create another weak pawn, maybe you can take the knight. I mean, David, you played a lot of these positions. Yeah. I mean, how would you play this as white? I mean...
Yeah, I've played against and with the isolated queen's pawn. I grew up kind of for the first 15, 16 years of my life, I was playing with this pawn in a lot of my openings, especially with the white side. And then in later years, I liked playing against it. So yeah, you're right, Simon. It's always a question, do you just kind of blockade this pawn? Do you play against it long term, or do you change the structure? And in later years, I quite like playing against this this structure, and he actually goes for it. I guess the idea will be, as you say, to attack this pawn first of all, and once it's defended, to try and occupy the square in front of it, just like you did with the other isolated pawn. This is slightly different. Black still has one isolated pawn over here. But, OK, we see this on the board. Black has one isolated pawn, but these types of... They're not quite hanging pawns. They will be called hanging pawns, for example, if they ever advance. We call these hanging pawns because they're both kind of hanging there, not defending each other. But the alternative structure here, if you can blockade... For example, the dream would be... OK, I'm going to help white here slightly, but the dream would be to, for example, occupy the squares in front of them and blockade them both, and then these two pawns are eternal weaknesses. These two knights are just immovable objects. This is the dream, but I don't know what Levon Aronian has in mind in the current position. If we go back, how is he going to stop the pawn advancing? He offers a queen trade. Yeah, very logical, actually. In an endgame, whose pawns are going to be weaker? It's probably black's. Easy plan to double up and attack the base of the pawn chain. Yeah, I mean, from my experience, it's not necessarily great. It's not necessarily a big advantage, but I don't think you're ever risking anything with white in these positions. And I'm not sure whether Ivanchuk will go for the queen trade. If he doesn't, then he's going to have to put his queen in a very passive square. So yeah, it's looking quite good for Aronian right now. There is also a threat of taking this pawn. Ivanchuk first gets rid of his bishop. That bishop was in danger of just being a bystander and not really helping out. Now we see a trade of queens, and black's knight leaping into the center, hitting this rook. Whoops. Oh, my arrows today a bit off. It's hitting this rook. And this rook has a question to answer. Do you go across to target another weak isolated pawn, or do you just take a step back and double up with your other rook when the opportunity arises? He does go after the weak pawn. That's very ambitious by Aronian. Yeah, what do you guys think? How would you estimate white's winning chances?
I mean, it looks like he's doing all the right things. I mean, as long as black's pawns don't move forwards, they're always going to be a bit weak, and white can attack those pawns with his rooks and his knight coming into the centre. So I'd want to try to blockade those pawns and gradually build up against them if I was white here. So maybe I can move my B pawn forwards or move my rook over, something like that. But I think if black can move the pawn, you know, the backwards pawn forwards, then he should be OK. So he has moved he has tried to stop that pawn from moving. And it's just black's pawns are a little bit weaker than white's pawns, and that means in the long run, white has this advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing, there is one consequence of pushing your pawn to that square, and that is, and this is this move, that the knight jumps back and is ready to spring forward to the c4 square, which means that you must always, that knight, the white knight, must be within guarding distance of that square. So I'm guessing that he's going to, I was going to say step back, but no, I like this idea much more. Step forward and target the weakness.
Yep, this is the weakness, and black's knight jump, attacking the rook, attacking the pawn, I guess will be met with a simple move by the white rook. And again, pressure on this guy. 2 pieces attacking it now. If you march forward, the problem is you are overloaded. This black rook is tied down defending this pawn, and after an exchange, white would win a pawn. This guy, the a pawn, might decide the game. So right now, yeah, it feels like Aronian's putting the pressure on. Ivanchuk has to be really accurate to defend, but he doesn't pause. He moves his rook across. So something similar might happen. For example, white might step his rook forward first or bring this one into the game. And it's all about the pressure on these 2 pawns right now.
It looks really nice, though, to have 2 rooks behind a pawn in an open line. Could that pawn become a star for Ivanchuk?
It could, but at the moment it's not an open line. And here we see that this pawn is prevented from moving. The square in front is guarded 3 times by white's pawns and pieces. It's only protected twice by black's rooks. So these rooks could become very, very good if this pawn suddenly disappears. But at the moment, they're just passive. They're stuck defending.
So actually wants the pawn off the board.
Yeah, you want to trade it off. You don't want to lose it for free. But yeah, if you can somehow trade off these 2 now, then black should be OK.
So the plan is not to have that pawn march up to become a queen?
Ideally, yes. But its path is blocked, unfortunately. This potential queen, yeah, it's miles away from coronation at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised to see Levon Aronian kind of centralize his king, just as Ivanchuk is doing, or maybe start attacking the pawn now. Can you win this pawn even?
Oh, it looks really...
It looks good, doesn't it? It looks like you can go for it.
Well, you have to put the knight maybe in the way, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, but it just looks like black's under a lot of pressure here at the moment. And this is... Oh, it's a very interesting idea here by Lev, right?
But I'm not sure about it, because he's not planning on taking the pawn, because then he would be doing black's hard work job for him, you know?
He might be planning on taking it. I'm not sure. I mean, for example, if black waits, what is white's plan? Is the idea just to trade off and then just start pushing and just trying to make use of this kind of 2 versus 1 majority? Maybe this 2 versus 1 is going to be the potential winner for white. Yes, black's traded off 1 weakness, but he's still got 2 isolated pawns. It's more than before. Yeah, it's a really interesting decision now ahead of Levon Aronian. Does he trade off and try to make use of his pawn advantage? We should mention black couldn't take this pawn on the last move because the black knight would have been loose and would have been captured. So Aronian, in the moment, he has to take or he has to wait.
I don't know. I'm just not a fan of this move by Levon. I just think that those 2 rooks were kind of blocked in by their own pawn. And yeah, if you take it and you do manage to win a pawn, then the black rooks are now free and they're able to generate counterplay.
Yeah, I guess he felt he had to do something, Aronian. Maybe he just didn't see any other way to make progress. I'm the same as you. I would have probably waited, manoeuvred a bit, but maybe the moment would have passed in that case. Maybe Levon thinking that this is his best practical try, at least. Ivanchuk looks super calm. I would be a bit stressed if I were black, I must admit.
Yeah. It's strange though, when you do have an advantage, you don't really need to change the pawn structure, as you kind of taught me. you might as well play around forever. I mean, I was thinking this move to try and push the pawns forwards and the neighbour of it going 1 square forwards as well. But it does seem strange to change the nature of the position when you have an advantage and you haven't done everything else possible first. So I'm kind of with you guys. It's a bit of a weird decision, but this has a clear idea now, and he wants to move the other pawn forwards 1 square, getting a very nice majority in sort of the king side, middle of the board. So
the white king also has a clear path towards the centre now, which is nice, a nice bonus. It's very hard for Ivanchuk to even find a move, to be honest. Black's knight is stuck, kind of plugging the c-file. The black rooks are stuck defending a pawn. Black's king can't really go anywhere. Yeah, actually, the more I look at it, the more I quite like it. Ivanchuk, meanwhile, talking to himself, calculating maybe.
Yeah.
Just trying to come up with some inspiration.
Kind of feels like his position is a bit too passive, really, and he needs to try and get some activity. I mean, it's so hard to defend passively, and he is now going for something. So he's doing what Kaya said, actually, trying to use those rooks, trying to push the pawn. Yeah. So hope he's not tuning into our commentary.
Yeah.
No, but I think this is a good decision.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was just going to get suffocated. Now, I mean, the first thing is that White does have the opportunity to win a pawn.
Yeah, so let's jump in. Can White win a pawn right now? There's this nice box of pawns and pieces, and something has to be done about them. So which pawn do you want to capture, Ivanka? I guess it's this one, because the White Knight is attacked.
Yeah, you have to take that one, and then obviously rook takes pawn. But yeah, I kind of forgot that the pawn on e4 was also hanging, so you need to take decision there first. So
there's no time to go and capture this pawn, because White's central pawn would suddenly fall. Yeah, I guess that's what's changed in the last couple of moves. Black's rook suddenly defends the knight, so this pawn is free to move. And here White has to decide, do you take this pawn? And I think Black can safely retake. It feels a bit awkward, this pin, but it looks like you're okay for now. The option for White is to step forward. I guess this was what Aronian was planning with his previous pawn push. These two pawns look good. Might be able to step forward a bit later as well. Still a weakness here. But Black has got rid of one pawn. And, OK, even if you have to take a time out to defend this guy now, at least you're more active than you were. Yeah, I like it too for Ivanchuk. It feels like he's found a way to alleviate the pressure. And, yeah, current position, Aronian, big decision to make. Definitely
must win for Ivanchuk, and probably a must win for Levon as well in this final game. In the preliminaries, the scenarios are many for who will qualify, and especially around that crucial 8th place. So Giri probably also must win for him. The bar is over to his side in his game against Arjun Erigaisi. Wojtaszek, he is around that crucial 8th place as well, bar all the way over to his side. So that is dramatic for both Levon and Anish on the same score as... no, sorry, Wojtaszek is on 16. So he can end up on 19. Probably not enough for him. Christopher Yu, it's not looking too good for him against Liam Le. Christopher also then on 18 points. And Navarra is also fighting. He is currently the player in 8th place, bar roughly to the middle, maybe slightly over to his side, against Gelfand and then Niemann. Looks like he is winning against Jan-Christoph Duda. Niemann, he is qualified for the knockout stage, but Duda not 100% safe. This could be dramatic for him. Could Duda be knocked out by then maybe 2 of the players on 18 points? Prague looks like he is winning his game against Ivan Saric, so Prague looks safe to qualify, but it's impossible to say right now who will probably take the 2 final spots in the knockouts then.
Yeah, it looks likely that between 7th and 11th place, those 5 players, 2 of them will qualify. So it's 2 from 5.
Wow.
It could be anyone. I'm looking at the games right now, and it's hard to call. Duda is losing, but still fighting. So he has some chance to save himself. But for the others, it's must-win, simply. Aronian knows it's must-win. Navarra, Christopher Yu, Anish.
So close. I mean, it could come down to some tie breaks as well, possibly. And I think the tie breaks is on individual scores, first of all, between the players. But
Head-to-head,
Head-to-head for the players on the same score. Then it's number of wins, and then it's something crazy for the computer to calculate.
I mean, tie breaks are always so complicated, aren't they? There's always issues with whatever tie break you decide. So,
I mean, if Duda draws and everyone on 18 wins, we could see 5 players on the same score.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
And then, I mean, imagine the head-to-head trying to work out who scored more against which player. We need our calculators. We need our stats men.
Yeah.
Is there still a chance of a Niemann versus Magnus final? Is there? Probably not. I don't think so.
Not a quarter-final. It doesn't look like it. But it's not very unlikely that they will be on the same side of the brackets and potentially face off in the semi-final.
OK.
Yeah. If Niemann is 4th or 5th in the preliminaries, they will be on the same side of the brackets.
But if Niemann wins, could he leap up to 3rd even?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, could
Could we see a Niemann-Carlsen final?
That's what final. That's what I was kind of thinking.
well,
yeah.
That would be...
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full of drama, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking about drama, Kaya, have you ever thought about announcing like who's qualified, as in like the X Factor? You know
what is that like?
how they used to line them up and they used to get step forward. You're safe.
Oh,
You go
that's
through.
brutal, yeah.
You can see the chess players who really wants it.
Problem is they're much smarter than me, so they would have already calculated who's through.
Yeah.
Like a big reveal to the audience.
Yeah.
You are the weakest link.
But maybe
Goodbye.
if they didn't know the tiebreak.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, which one was going to be the deciding one. That wasn't announced, and then...
Or how about we do like in America's Got Talent and we all have our X and we can say, you're out. Oh, but then we could have a golden ticket. Like if we really wanted, like Ivanchuk, for example.
Yeah.
I want him in the final.
He plays this fantastic
once
game.
every season, you could give
Press the
someone a golden ticket to a final.
But you'd have to knock someone out. It'd be a bit unfair, wouldn't it? It'd be like, yeah, sorry, Magnus, not this time. So, yeah.
Meanwhile, the game has changed slightly, and Ivanchuk, his chances are minimal now, but he might play spoiler for Levon Aronian because he's given up a pawn, Ivanchuk, but he's gone active. And look at this black pawn now, marching forward. White's rook tied down, stopping its advance. And yeah, it's just looking very difficult. Suddenly the white knight is very, very passive. That white pawn on the edge of the board, the white A pawn, ready for picking off at some point. The black rook can go for it. I think Ivanchuk's active enough. This is great endgame technique from such an experienced endgame player. And he's just going active. He gave away a pawn. He didn't want to sit there and negatively defend. Now all his pieces are perfectly placed, Ivanchuk.
Interesting game. One game has finished. Adiban Wojtaszek, a draw. Both of them knocked out of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. But most of the other players in here fighting to qualify. Most of the games have players fighting for 2 final spots in the knockout stage.
Yeah, it's looking like Aronian. He is one of those players, but he's going to need a helping hand. He's going to have to hope that other results go in his favour. Because the more I look at it, the more I think Ivanchuk's just what a setup he's found with his knight, rook, and pawn. Maybe we can jump in just to explain why White, being a pawn up, this extra pawn is maybe not winning right now. I just can't see a move, actually, for White. Any productive move. This rook needs to stay behind the pawn to stop it advancing. If the rook moves away, for example, there might be trouble. This pawn could advance and counterattack against the white knight. This looks very scary. So if you can't move that piece, you don't really want to move this knight. Maybe you could make an argument for moving it away and then recentralizing it later. What about the king coming forward? What would black do here?
Seems the most logical, the king coming forwards, if you can try to bring it towards the centre, possibly. I think the other problem for Aronian is, you know, if you get some pieces, pawns exchange, you get to a drawn rook ending. So maybe now, with this last move, he's like, right, OK, I need to get my knight into a position to create threats against black's king. And that does seem logical, but it's allowed black to move this knight, and black's pawn in the middle of the board is ready to roll, with the knight now defending it. So, but OK, I mean, Aronian had to take risks, and you know, he has to be careful here.
Yeah,
Very
definitely.
careful.
I love what Ivanchuk did, because Levon actually had a serious threat of putting the knight into the centre. Now that's not possible. It's been stopped. And still, there's no way for White to really come forward.
Yeah, I mean, if this pawn steps down, suddenly this pawn is up for grabs later, so you can't really move the king. If you move the king, this pawn falls with check, and black is in time to save his rook and his knight by going back. So it looks like black is better, if anything, here because of this very, very strong protected pass pawn. So I'm assuming Ivanchuk will go for this. You could make an argument maybe for the black king coming as well. What else could black try? You don't even need to rush. This pawn looks very... Oh, sorry, my arrows. This pawn looks very safe right now.
I mean, is White threatening to come in with their king? I mean, there is the thing that the black rook can just keep checking, so it's not going to get anywhere ambitious. But if black were feeling like they could play for more...
Yeah, maybe Ivanchuk has some winning chances. what a turnout it would be if Ivanchuk wins this game and qualifies.
Oh, wow.
But
Can he still qualify? I mean, what was
need everyone else to lose in front of him, pretty much.
Yeah, it's going to. I mean, even if he wins, it's very unlikely. We can dream.
Yeah, he can dream. I mean, he would overtake Aronian.
Yeah.
Maybe a move like this, king move or pawn move. But yeah, if he wins Ivanchuk, he would overtake Aronian. He would need Christopher Yu to lose, Navarra to lose, Anish to lose, and then he's in.
Yeah. Well, stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the D pawn is very strong, isn't it? And White's pawns can drop off as well at the wrong moment. There's many tempting moves here, aren't there? I mean, moving the king makes sense. That pawn push, yeah. I mean, what's he going to play? He's now, I think, realising he's got some chances here. Pushing Harry, yeah, I like it as well.
I like pushing Harry, but I mean, we could kind of mention that White was thinking potentially of introducing the king into the game, but is perhaps the idea of advancing the f pawn something to think about?
Yeah, advancing the f-pawn. There are some checkmating ideas. For example, if the pawn steps forward, maybe White has time to march forward, just utilising some checkmate ideas. I'm not sure whether it's good or not, but the Black King
That was my plan.
in some trouble.
We've seen this checkmate work already, haven't we? And in a previous game,
What's this checkmate called?
Backspanker.
It's called back rank mate. But if it were a king, actually, ironically enough, it was the king sitting there on f6. It's actually called box mate. I never knew
Wow.
that one had a name, but it does.
So this was one potential idea for White. What's this checkmate called? Is this also the box mate, for example, if the king is trapped, or is this just a back rank?
Looks like a back rank to
Also
me.
a back rank checkmate. So Black's king actually in some potential trouble, so Ivanchuk decided to push his pawn. This pawn will act as a distraction at the very least. If White tries the same, White goes for this plan, pushing forward. Still some question starts, actually, for the Black king. I think this is what Aronian should try, or what he will try, just because these pawns look dangerous. You don't really want to capture and allow White's knight into the dream f5 square.
He hasn't played it.
Doesn't play it. That looked very natural to me, but he dropped back instead.
I mean, it's a bit strange going passive like this with the knight as well, but I mean, he's keeping Black's pawn under lock and key here. That pawn is now going to struggle to come forward. Surely Black now just brings the king or something like this, but it's still a lot going on here. 3 results, they're all available, as always. And
Best play, it should be a draw, but these are two humans. It's a rapid game.
Yep.
Plenty of chances for both sides.
And that's dramatic when you look at the bar in Anish Giri's game. It's all the way over to his side. He is one of those 4 players on 18 points. So a winner will put Giri probably, maybe, in the quarterfinals, of course, depending on results in the other game. This one, for example, in the Magnus Carlsen Keimer game, the bar is slightly over to Keimer's side, actually. Is Magnus in trouble there? And actually, before this round, Magnus had a performance rating in the tournament of 29-28, even after losing 15 rating points against Niemann, losing that game.
That's incredible.
29-28.
Yeah.
Close to 3,000 in performance rating.
The road to 2,900.
Yeah.
I was just going to share with you a picture because I feel like there's so many things that could happen, that there's so much excitement going on all over the boards, that I kind of like the way that Fat Max is watching the show. He says, not enough tablets for so many fantastic games. They've got them all.
Impressive.
that's just stupid. You can't look at that many games, can you? Or maybe you can.
You can.
Yeah, well, there is a tab, isn't there, on Chess 24 where you can just switch, you know, on one screen as well. So
You can have them all on one screen, right?
actually, I do like that. Actually, now the more I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I could be looking at like
Exactly.
without
Following
switching.
this, looking at that. Yeah.
without moving my arm, and the lazier the better, right? So I just have to move my eyes.
Yeah.
Actually, that is good. I've changed my mind.
I once had one computer screen with the chess on, one with the football on, one with the tennis, and then the other one I was like doing some work on. But
And did you manage to work?
No. I think I typed like 3 words and I was like, I'll do it later.
Yeah, there is a lot to pay attention to right now. Who knows who will qualify? There are plenty of players in contention, especially for 2 spots, because it does look like Jan-Christoph Duda is losing to Hans Niemann. So that means 2 spots are up for grabs in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I've taken a look at the Giri game. It looks like he's in control and should win that one.
Okay.
Barring a miracle escape by Aronian. So Giri might be in line to take one of those two spots. Good for all those Giri fans out there.
Yeah, according to Tai, if both Giri, Niemann and Prag wins, Baer's all the way over to their side in their games, 93% chance to qualify for a niche. But of course, stuff can happen in the other games as well. And this one, the bar has been over to Ivanchuk's side now. Went down a little bit now, though.
It went over to his side slightly. I guess it's because Black's pawn in the centre was so strong, but now he's offering it up. He's giving his pawn away in order to transition into, as Simon mentioned earlier, a drawn rook and pawn endgame. So if White's knight goes and takes this black pawn, which it doesn't, oof, Aronian playing with fire there. It looks like that pawn could run through. But yeah, if that pawn was captured, we would have seen a trade of knights. Black's rook would have gone and won those white pawns on the right, and it would have ended up as a draw. Aronian shaking his head there.
Yeah, I mean,
Black has got some chances.
And I guess he realises that he has to win this game, and he's like, oh, hang on a minute, I don't actually have any winning chances, you know, if Chucky plays the right moves. And I don't think Chucky's thinking about, you know, this is the thing with Chucky. He's not thinking about winning or drawing or anything. He's just trying to play the best moves. You know, he's just like, you can see he's just a pure person, isn't he? You know, he's just a pure chess player. He just wants to play the best chess, you know. He wouldn't have played the opening he did, I think, otherwise, if he really desperately wanted to win.
And if Giri wins this game, Ivanchuk will be eliminated.
But doesn't Ivanchuk almost have a draw? So I'm thinking the first move to initiate this draw would be to move the king.
Move the black king?
Yeah, move the black king. And the whole idea is that, say that white pushes the pawn. I don't see any way for the white king to approach. So, yeah, then the rook will come down. And once...
the knight?
Yep, and threaten to promote.
Yep.
And you can't... This is the reason for the king move. You can't really...
Capture the pawn?
Yeah, capture the pawn, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because suddenly you get pinned in one of two ways, and the white knight would drop. This one, yeah, some winning chances for black. I guess the idea here would be that the white knight defends from this angle. I think this is his plan to cover the promotion square, but it's really hanging by a thread. Instead, Ivanchuk chose a different path. He didn't move his king, which looked very natural. He brought his rook across to try and eliminate this pawn.
Oof.
And, whoa.
Oh, hang a minute. Is this a blunder? Has Lev just... I think he has. Look at his reaction.
Yeah.
Has he... I mean...
No, I think, well, it should be fine, right?
Should be a draw still, but...
It's an important pawn, though.
Yeah.
Very important pawn. That was the only passed pawn that Lev had. And I don't know. I mean, I can see the bars saying it's in the middle, but why isn't black just a lot better now?
Yeah, we should explain that after rook takes pawn, white's rook now, it looks like it can take the black rook, the black knight, but it's tied down, stopping this pawn promoting. So this is what we call a deflection tactic. If the black rook is captured, black makes a new queen. And it is captured. Wow.
Whoa.
He lets the queen appear on the board, but now Ivanchuk, it feels like he's winning. They're so loose, these pieces.
It feels like he should have a forced win here, even, you know? Is there a forced win? Like, nearly queen c2 is nearly...
Yeah, like,
Check, hit the rook. The white king has to defend its rook.
he has to drop a piece.
How?
No, I got a bit enthusiastic there.
Yeah, right now it's hanging by a thread. Okay,
here we go.
wow, look at this. Stockfish says there's only one winning move, and it does start with the most natural move. Simon mentioned it, this check, hitting the white king and hitting the rook. So you can force the white king to come forward to defend its rook. I wonder what's next, because the first move is obvious, but he needs the follow-up. I'm struggling to see it. It looks like you can give a check hitting all the white pieces, but the white knight leaps to the defense, blocks. Is the idea that you go this way? Ugh, this is hard. This is extremely hard. You hit the knight, and this knight can't be defended. If the knight moves, then you go into the corner, and you use this angle, and you win the white knight after it blocks. I don't know if he's going to see this. This check, next move you win the white knight. This is what the computer thinks, but human point of view, incredibly tough.
Yeah, because if you don't spot this tactic, then it should be a draw.
Should be a draw.
Because all the pawns are on the same side. And we had this ending yesterday, if you're watching the commentary, and that was a draw with Chucky defending against Magnus Carlsen with the rook and knight versus queen. And the way you're supposed to draw this, you've got to keep your rook, your king, and your knight all defending each other, all keep them close to each other. So if white can get that set up, there should be no way black can get through. But David's pointed out quite an amazing line there where white's pieces are just a little bit discombobulated and they can't defend each other.
And take a look at Chucky. He's in Chucky mode.
He is a genius. He's capable of finding this.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not sure I would find it even with 15, 20 minutes on the clock, let alone Chucky's 3 minutes.
I wonder how this changes things if Chucky wins. I mean, can he still qualify? Someone say yes.
Yes, but no one on 18 points can win, and of course it looks very good for Anish Giri on 18 points to win. So if any of those wins, a win will not be enough for Ivanchuk. But of course, we know anything can happen in chess.
Miracles have happened on the tour before.
Yeah.
Chucky, this is why as well he's such a great player. He always pauses at the critical moments, and he sensed it. That deflection tactic was nice. I'm surprised Aronian went for this so quickly. He still had plenty of time. But
that Queen C2 and then the line you just showed, David.
Second move is the hardest one.
Incredibly hard to see because, and again, the only way you'd see this move is by doing that tactic I mentioned time and time again. What is my opponent going to play next? If you're only thinking about your own moves and trying to force the situation, then you'll never see this way of playing. And one key thing to become a better player is just, get in that habit. What's my opponent going to play next? What move can he possibly play? And I think it might be worth showing that again, David, don't you? Because it's that second move, which is a really hard move, but what a beautiful move. It's like a study, actually.
It's the geometry, right? It's a check, it's a double attack. You force your opponent's move, so the first one's obvious. But here, it's process of elimination as well from Chucky. You see that this check is back where you came from, doesn't help. Oh, he doesn't find it. This check would have been blocked, but this was the winning move to bring the queen to this square, hitting the white knight. The white rook is still under supervision as well, so the white knight has to move, and no matter where you put it, there will be a disaster. Here, the queen can come into the corner, and at least you win some pawns.
I think you could win the knight there as well, David. You're right. All these lines are just very good, aren't they? So, yeah.
You win the knight, you're right, Simon, even stronger. You win the knight this way. If the knight goes the other direction, you check first with a skewer, the knight moves, and then you win it on the next move with a check. This would have been winning if we go back to the game situation. He didn't find it. It was very tough, very difficult in that position, so we can forgive him with 3 minutes on his clock.
And
but now it should be a draw.
Look at that, the bar all the way over to Christopher Yu's side now in his game against Liam Le. He is also a player on 18 points. So if both him and Anish wins their games, we have to check head-to-head scores between those two.
So hard to work out, isn't it, what's happening?
It was a win for Christopher Yu.
OK, so that would put the 15-year-old through. Wow.
Yeah, and Duda now will be regretting not playing a more solid game because both Christopher Yu and Giri are going to leapfrog him.
Aha.
Oh, I mean, nobody expected that. We thought Duda was almost safe. Meanwhile, back at this game, it should be a draw, but suddenly White's got a pawn racing up the board. Could we see another turnaround? White's pawn suddenly dangerous. Ivanchuk down to 2 minutes. I don't think he's aware that he missed a win. It was incredibly tough to find, but he's got to recompose himself now and somehow stop this white pawn.
Do you think Aronian saw the win? It'd be interesting. No, it was really hard. I mean, it kind of was a very hidden win, and I mean, David saw it, but I mean, maybe
a computer nudge to
find
it. If I didn't see the evaluation bar, I would have probably played the same move as.
But who would have thought? I mean, that is actually. I'm going to remember that one and show it if I ever do any lectures, because it's one of those ones where it's just a little move which doesn't seem to do anything. The only way you can find it, what is my opponent going to play next? And it's a really nice little move, that one.
It's like stretching the opponent's army. It's like your opponent's defences are like this, and then you push him over.
Yeah.
Just.
But you do it in a way by stepping away, which is lovely. So you're stretching your opponent not by coming in, but by stepping away, which is kind of like, it's a very beautiful, aesthetically pleasing way of doing things.
Yeah, it's almost unique. I've never seen that before, I must admit.
Very nice. Yeah.
And one of the players on 18 points have finished with a draw. David Navarra, a draw against Gelfand. So 19 points, currently in 8th place, but it looks very likely that either Christopher Yu or Anish Giri will win, maybe both of them. So 19 points should not be enough for David Navarra.
Yeah, and the tour before, we've seen 21 is usually the golden number. Occasionally, you even need 22, but this tournament is going to be 21, and you guarantee almost.
And what about Prague? I mean, I've kind of lost track of the scores a little bit. Can Prague qualify? Is he qualified? I mean,
he's qualified already.
He's qualified
so he
already.
Has 20
okay.
points.
Safe yet.
He's not safe yet, but
He needs to score in this game.
right. Okay.
If he gets a draw, then probably qualified. We can have several players on 21 points, but I mean the bar very much over to his side in that game.
Yeah.
But if Prague loses, he might be out.
Yeah.
So much time for Ivanchuk.
Chucky.
1 second.
Okay, he made a move with
2 seconds left, but things are turning again. Suddenly, this Black King is a blockader for this white pawn, but he's running out of moves now, Ivanchuk. This knight move is really hinting at the fact that white wants to get his knight. If that knight can give one check, it's game over. The Black King is not happy where it stands, but okay, Ivanchuk here. He can probably just force a draw by giving a check with his queen, bringing it back to the center, hitting the white king. White's king, rook, and knight. It's like you said earlier, Simon, they protect each other now. So it's safe. And whoa, what a move by Aronian. What a trick.
And he's just saying, take the rook, because the knight is going to jump to the d6 square and fork everything. And now it just looks like it's winning for white.
What happened? Excuse me?
Control, Chucky. We have to show this in action replay, just backtracking a couple of moves. A check, the white king moved, another check, and I thought this was a draw. I thought the white king had to stay protecting its rook, but Aronian said, no, I can abandon that rook. If queen takes rook, a knight check, and white will win the queen on the next move. And that meant that black had to go back and pin the white knight, and suddenly this is a key idea. The white knight is pinned right now, so black can safely stay on this line, but all he needs is one check.
So if you just got to find the right square for the king.
Look at the bar,
Yeah.
plus 10. As long as the white king moves to safety.
Somewhere the white king can step out of the pin. You just need to be able to move the knight. So which way do you go with the king? This is what Lev is trying to work out now. He's got loads of time.
Where do you go with the king?
My instinct is to go to the middle, right up the board.
This one.
Yeah, that's just
And
my
he's done it.
instinct.
I like it. And he's
Big threat.
there's only one check here as well. And that's the only check that it's been played. And he's found it. I think this is the winning
he's
idea.
going to win. This knight check is going to dislodge the black king. White is going to make a new queen. Game over. Ivanchuk shakes his head.
Poor
Head in
Chucky.
hands now, and he does click that resign button. Game over.
It is over. Levon Aronian is now on 21